Hi, Dr. Benson. This is Alfreda Foster. I am going to attempt my second video and go through some of the feedback that I received on my personal statement paper. I did receive quite a bit of feedback. I did want to focus in on just a few of those things, just to kind of elaborate a few things. The first was I did see feedback from you on my thesis statement being explicit. um, I guess I didn't realize that it was being written as explicit when I wrote that statement. I really thought I did a good job with my thesis statement, but apparently I didn't. Um, Another thing that I noted from quite a few of the feedback statements was elaborating more on instead of just listing things. For example, the things that I do here at work on a daily basis or throughout the year. You mentioned kind of go into more detail about what those things were. One of the things that you mentioned specifically for more detail was talk about the parent meetings that I lead. What are the topics? So I think what I was trying to do was stay either within a certain page count or maybe word count and not make the paper too long by elaborating on everything that I mentioned. But in the future, I see that that's something that I definitely do need to do. Um, and then also, you mentioned how do the experiences that I've had throughout my job career relate to the job that I'm applying for. So that would also be something that going back into the paper, I would go back and elaborate again some additional things and give more details about what I do and how it relates to the job that I'm applying for. Um, Another thing that I was a little confused by on the feedback was when I talked about you mentioned about the audience that the paper is being written for. So for me, the audience would be I would definitely be within the secondary or even the public school era. Public school would be my audience, someone who would be hiring for a counseling coordinator position. So some of those things that I talked about in the paper, I felt like it would be relevant for that audience. That audience would know what those things are or should know what those things are. For example, when I talked about the human trafficking and training the entire district with human trafficking and creating those protocols and things for the district, that I felt was very relevant because that came out of, I believe, House Bill 3 in summer of 2019, that every school and every district was required to train all of their staff and also students in recognizing human trafficking and knowing what those signs and warning signs are. So I felt like for the audience that I'm applying for a job, I felt like those things that I listed was relevant. Um, so I was a little confused by that particular feedback statement. Another thing that I noted was I did separate some of my education. For instance, I mentioned getting my master's degree in the beginning of the paper, but then I didn't talk about doing the doctoral degree until the end. And one of the things that you mentioned was why was that at the end? Why did I separate it? Education should have all been together. Um, and then also, how does my research that I'm doing for my doctoral program align with the job that I'm applying for? So again, those are things I think elaboration, being able to talk more about what I'm doing versus just trying to stay within a certain word count or page count. So definitely in the future going forward, unless I'm told that I have a certain amount of words or a certain page count that I have to stick to, I'll definitely go ahead and elaborate more on those things.